So we called to order the Town of Lake Cowichan Committee of the Whole meeting Tuesday, December 13th, 2022 at 5 p.m. to be held at Council Chambers, temporarily located at 38 King George Street, Lake Cowichan, BC, and transmitted electronically. And so I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we will, come on, it's coming to me. We're holding the meeting on the traditional unceded territory of the Subasa First Nations. So any introduction of any late items, please?
Yeah, I need want to introduce a leave of absence for myself till January 10th.
And that will go under
Business D,
business D.
leave of absence for Councillor Frisbee. And I do have a couple, Madam Chair, just some time sensitive appointments under new business E.
Appointments. Anything else from council members? No, from staff? No.
And before we get started, Madam Chair, for those watching at home, if there is anyone, once the delegation presentation comes up, it is not coming through very well on our YouTube feed, but you can follow along on the website. It has been downloaded on there. So if you do want to follow along once the delegation starts, please do so at the website.
And so I'm looking for the approval of the agenda as amended. Councillor Austin, seconded by Councillor Frisbee, all in favor? And so we will now move. I know we're going to do our minutes first, right, for approval. Yeah, approval. So we're going to move with council approval to number 6, delegation and representations. Is that okay with all council members? Okay. So welcome Dr. Shannon Waters and Vanessa. Now see, it's dark in this corner. Gather? Dater, okay, from our Cowichan regarding our health, our community for Cowichan Valley Regional Health and Wellness Survey. And so we allow 10 minutes for a presentation. If you need to go longer, we'll get council approval. So welcome tonight.
Sure. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, so I'm Shannon Waters. I am the medical health officer with the Cowichan Valley region. So cover the area of Lake Cowichan. Some of you I've met or talked to on the phone before in the past. It's nice to be out this way. And with me today, I have my friend and colleague,
Vanessa Data. I am the project manager for the Our Health, Our Community Survey, which we're going to speak to you about tonight.
So in giving a bit of a background, this particular survey is really a unique opportunity for the Cowichan Valley region. We have 2 other areas within the province have done this survey, Vancouver Coastal and Fraser Health. Those are typically some of our areas that are the health authorities across the province. And pre-COVID, we were looking to try and implement this survey within the Island Health and Interior North, and we were looking at doing an island-wide approach, and then the pandemic happened and many things went by the wayside. You may be familiar with something that we have within Island Health, which are called community wellness grants. So those are opportunities for funding to go out to community. While COVID was happening, many community projects weren't happening, so that money wasn't spent. And we were able to advocate for that money to be focused here in the Cowichan Valley for implementing this survey. We'd already done a lot of work with the Community Health Network at looking at getting this into being. So this is a unique opportunity for this region that we're really excited to share about with you here today. And what this is it's the ability to get very local data, like Town of Lake Cowichan level data on health and wellness, some of our neighborhood characteristics, things like how do we feel, you know, how well we belong in our communities for residents who are 18 years and older. And with the survey having gone out in other regions, there's some advantages to that because there is a standardized questionnaire form, which we know people have answered before, like it's fairly straightforward. People were able to answer. And then we also had the ability to develop some region-specific questions in consultation with communities. And just a little more context, it was around 80 or so questions in the previous iterations, seemed to be generally able to be answered. We had the ability to adjust that. And for the whole of the Cowichan Valley region, in order to get numbers of data that we can really are robust and that can help inform things that we, approaches that we take, we want to far surpass 4,500 people across the whole of the region. So we have some funds and an approach to really look at doing that.
And so what is the value that this survey can bring to local government, like the town of Lake Cowichan? And so with the goal of this health and wellness survey, our intention is to collect resident level data on health status, health inequities, and the priorities of Cowichan Valley residents to support evidence-based decision-making around community health and well-being programs and initiatives, community planning around health and the creation of health promoting environments, public policy development and implementation, and also identifying data points for resource allocation and funding opportunities. And there's a lot more ways in which the data from this kind of survey can be applied. And just to contextualize that a bit deeper, so Shannon mentioned the My Health, My Community survey, and that was a similar survey conducted in Lower Mainland in 2014. Vancouver Coastal Health, Fraser Health, and UBC all partnered to develop this population level health and wellness survey for the Fraser Valley, Vancouver region. And they're able to use the data collected for public good. And so there's 5 examples you can see on your screen. So Handy Dart was able to access the data and look at it and identify gaps in their own service and adjust funding and operations accordingly to improve service for residents in Metro Vancouver. City of Vancouver was able to take the data and use it to develop and inform their healthy city strategy. And New West was able to take the data and look at developing or informing their Walk 30 Burnaby New West initiative, which was a local walking challenge that got residents to get outside and get active, to connect with their neighbors and enjoy their environment. So there's a lot of unique ways in which data on like health and wellness can be used. And this is just a few examples of what could be done within our region as well. So in looking at this as a region, we definitely have some priority areas that the survey can help us inform our response on. And I'll just talk about 3 of them. So Town of Lake Cowichan is not unique in this aspect. Really, hands down, in every community across the province, the #1 area of health burden is within mental health. And so that was going into COVID. Now, here is some results from a survey that was done during COVID. Some of you may have contributed to it. It's called Speak, and there was 2 rounds. And this is looking at part of the Cowichan Valley region and looking at some of the measures of mental health and resiliency as the pandemic went on. So you can see the sense of community belonging was decreasing. People had less connection with friends. People reported worse mental health and increased feelings of hopelessness. So these are like important things to know about. We're there to begin with, but then also with how we responded to pandemic, there was some exacerbation of these types of things. And certainly these are things we want to look at as a community, because when our community members don't have good mental health, there's many things that, they're not able to contribute to communities. And so we certainly, this is an area we want to work collectively on. Around mentioning mental health, I cannot leave out the illicit drug toxicity crisis, which has been going on, unfortunately, for many years now. The emergency declared in 2016. And this year, I just wanted to share up until September of this year. So this is the latest data we have for this year. We are actually on track. We will likely surpass the highest number of deaths within the Cowichan Valley region to date throughout this crisis. So we have had 32 deaths within the Cowichan Valley region up until the end of September. I want to acknowledge maybe some of these people are, people you may know here in this room. When we look at this graph in the bottom here, orange shows Viha as a whole, and blue shows the Cowichan Valley region. So we're pretty much showing a rate that's very typical for the rest of the island region in terms of the morbidity and mortality we're seeing with regards to the drug toxicity crisis. And then one last other area I'll highlight is that of what's going on with our climate. So we had extreme drought
over this past summer. We actually have one area of the island that's still in drought right now. I don't know if some of you may have seen in the media, Mount Washington Resort is asking people to bring their own water because in December, they're still in a shortage. So we've been, connecting with their drinking water operators, and we know that last summer, 16% of systems said they've actually experienced water shortages to date. In 2021, we had the heat dome, which was devastating. And we know this is a map showing where different deaths occurred. This is from the corner within the Central Island region. We had 25 deaths that occurred throughout the heat dome, 8 in the North Island and 22 in the South Island. So certainly we're seeing impacts from heat. And then this on the right here is showing, some effects that can happen at a community level when we have wildfire smoke in our air. So this is showing when particulate matter, something that is in the air with smoke rises. So this was some of the summer wildfire smoke. This here shows people who are getting Ventolin dispensers for asthma, the blue inhalers, and you can see that the amount of people that are filling out prescriptions for Ventolin increases dramatically when the air quality gets worse because people are struggling when they're breathing that air. So all these are ways that the climate is affecting our health and areas that we need to have information on so we can inform our response.
So in terms of our project timeline, we have a 1-year scope. We started as a team, and I should clarify, this is a partnership between Island Health and the Our Couch and Convenience Health Network. And so we started in September, and we're hoping to launch the survey next spring and to report back data to our communities at the end of next summer. But through our entire timeline, a central element is community engagement, which is part of the reason why we're here tonight speaking with you. Just for context, our community engagement plan is informed by the IQ spectrum of public participation. So we're working not only to inform communities that this project is coming out next year, but we're working to consult, involve, and collaborate around key decisions for this survey. So everything from identifying what are the priorities of the survey, what questions do we need to ask in the survey so the data is actually relevant and meaningful to the various stakeholders in the Couch Valley. How are we collaborating on our analysis plan so that we're able to share data that's meaningful and useful for various stakeholders? And then how are we reporting that out? And ultimately, our hope is to empower the community to take the data, take ownership over the data, and to apply it for meaningful change at our community. Which brings us to sort of our offering or ask for the evening is an opportunity to work together with our team. And so we're reaching out to all levels of government within the Cowichan region and asking for input as to what our survey questions should be. And so we're reaching out to a diversity of stakeholders, including local governments. We have a really easy question submission form. We can email you. It's a little PDF. And it's an opportunity for the town of Lake Cowichan, knowing your resources in the community, maybe what data gaps that you are experiencing right now in terms of health and wellness for your community. It's an opportunity for you to reflect and to come up with 5 questions that you would like to suggest be included in the survey. And so we're reaching out to hundreds of different organizations, so we can't include everyone's questions in the survey. We'll compile all the questions we receive and then make our priorities from there. And then we're hoping in the end, if you participate, you'll see your questions reflected in some capacity. But really wanting to make sure that the survey itself, like Shannon said, we have a stock list of vetted questions, but we have a really unique opportunity to dig into local needs through this survey. And so we can email that out when you're ready. And we also want to ask if you'll be available in the spring to promote the survey when it goes live. In order to provide like the town of Lake Cowichan community level data, we need a lot of people to fill out the survey. And that's one, there's a lot of reasons behind that. We need valid data, but we also need to protect survey participants. So if there's not an adequate number of survey participants, we can't really report out extensive data without possibly identifying someone. So we'll have a media kit available in the spring when the survey goes live, but we can email it to your staff. And we ask if you're able to share information about the survey with your community, that would just be very much appreciated.
And I could also say one thing we're looking at is getting a target level by community. So like for the town of Lake Cowichan, what would be the target level of people that you would want answering the survey to get results that might be utilizable, and we'll be able to give you that number and let you know as the survey rolls out kind of where you're at if you wanted to do some more targeted.
So with that, just a big thank you for having us here tonight and listening to our presentation. Our contact information is in the PowerPoint, which I believe is in the agenda package, but if there's time, we're also happy to answer questions here.
That's for some.
Just a couple questions. So with the media kit, like, could we do a mail out to our community, like, the questionnaire when it comes out, like, as municipality? Would that help this?
Yeah, like I think we
Get it
have
out
the
there.
opportunity to talk about what's realistic with budgets and flexibilities. So maybe that's a conversation we can have in January to sort of see as we're planning our media pieces. Right now, our media kit is predominantly digital, but if you see value in the resource, we'll discuss that.
I'll get back to you.
Thank you. I just had a question. Have you contacted our community services with this? Or is this something, could we share that document with them?
So we have sort of 5 stakeholder groups that we're connecting with, and so local government is one. In early of next year, we're reaching out to all the service organizations within sort of our catchment. So likely they'll be included, but I don't see any reason why you wouldn't share this information.
And the poverty reduction team is working on a lot of different things like this. So can we share that with them as well? That's Rosalie Sowry with social planning.
Yep, yeah, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the hope and idea is that this information would be useful for groups like that to apply for funding or evaluate their programs.
Thank you.
I just went blank again. I don't know what is going on.
Okay, we'll go back to the bigger, and you can write it down.
First of all, thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate that. For anyone that is watching, I think this will identify gaps in the health services that are available, not only in the town of Lake Cowichan, but in the surrounding areas. And focusing on how we can fill those gaps, whether it's transient health services or whatever aspect that we come up with. With the lack of family doctors, not only in our area, but throughout the province, we're struggling to find family doctors that will even take patients anymore. What would need to occur for a primary care center similar to Chemainus or the town of Ladysmith to be placed within our community, given we have a similar population as Chemainus area, Ladysmith, which would take some of the, and maybe this might identify the gap of that primary care within our area. Just wondering if that might be a focus that we could look at as our question.
Let me say, I am not the person who is the primary decision maker on those types of things, but like, yes, this type of survey would give the data like around, wellness in the community. What do people have access to? It would be great data for advocating for that type of thing. And so certainly this data, we're working on it with an Island Health as well. So I mean, we have like that would be within our spheres as well. I mean, there's many other components to those types of discussions too. But like, I mean, if you look back at the slide where which different communities had used
Right.
So, yeah, so in Vancouver, they used it to inform the GP for Me initiative and the development of the patient medical home pilot project. So like patient medical home, these things change names different times, but primary care network, same type of thing. So yeah, so, and one thing we had said is, could we work with Vancouver and Fraser to find out how they use this data? So I think, yeah, we could ask Vancouver and say, how did you use this data and help inform that? So I think there's some possibilities there, and the decisions are made at a different level than the first.
We totally understand that, but we wanted to get it on video. Actually, I did, and it's the timing couldn't be more useful, because I was going to ask for a meeting with yourself just on some of the gaps that we do have. So we will wait and see what comes through the survey and advocate for higher levels for that. Knowing that the impact of the new hospital will have constraints on capital capacity, but We certainly do have some gaps. Thank you.
I will say that some of the other places we wanted to give delegations were curious as to what the questions were previous, just to make sure when they were asking for certain questions, they weren't already covered in the survey. If you would be interested in seeing that, we could share that with you.
Absolutely, that would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Okay, we'll take that.
Awesome.
Thank you. Good for the minutes. Thank you. Yeah, I was gonna say the thing that's gonna. We got the sanctuary voice. Oh. Oh, it's better. They're not with rotary and adjustment today is all good. So then those that it's not that. We're moving on now to the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting from November the 8th, 2022, looking for. Sorry, just information. Okay, I don't need it. Yes. Sir Sanders.
Just, questions, were the follow-ups done regarding the property owner, of that property adjacent to the high school, the school? That empty lot with all the blackbirds? There was gonna be, A letter.
I believe the bylaw.
okay, and then the follow-up with the resident regarding the bylaw complaint. Guys, regarding the black bears, so there was three. There was three directions.
Yeah, I think.
And then also 63 Couch Lake Road, has that started?
Letter was
Yeah, thank you.
under my.
And again, if we can speak up for those at home, please. Thank you.
Any other questions on that?
I think just, sorry, if I may, just with 63 Cowichan Lake Road, I think we have to be clear is we're just looking for that property cleaned up. We're not looking to dig into the ground or anything like that. So I think we're going to make that very clear that all we're just doing is trying to improve the aesthetic look of that building. It's not something we want to go any further on. So that's the stage we're at now.
Yeah, and you're correct, that's basically what we addressed.
Unsightly premise.
On second trial. And the safety issue.
Yes. Okay, so we'll move along to business arising and unfinished business, which is the update on the municipal hall. If you would like to speak on that.
Yeah,
Joe.
if I may, I did give you an update as of the end of September. You can see those are the items that were completed or in the state of where in state of completion. Council chambers, and as a matter of fact, we did take a look at it today. I'm not sure how far that has progressed. But this status here basically covers what's been accomplished so far. And they had originally stated that March 1st would be the date by which the project would be completed. But it appears that weather might affect a little bit of a delay on that. So in the meantime, listed the change orders that need to be approved by council. And also council will need to authorize the duration of that project. I don't think we want to stop the project right by December 31st. As a result of them digging it, making changes to that facility, they found issues that needed to address. And that's why the change orders. The building inspector was involved in a couple of those changes. The roof changes were caused by him looking and asking questions. So that's why one of the reasons why some of the kids don't do that.
Sorry, do I have to, I wanted to, the recommendation, yeah, Counselor Sanders, with any questions?
So Joe, with these change orders, like I was looking at the date issued, are they on hold with this until it's before us?
Well, I just wanted you to be aware.
But it's not on hold, right? This,
No, not
Okay,
hold it,
good.
basically, I would have signed those. out.
okay, good. I was like, that's a long wait.
No, it's
if-
not.
if It's not approved.
They just want to be ahead of.
Okay, no, perfect.
And I did run it by mail.
No, that's fine. I just looked at the date. I'm like, that's a long time that they're waiting for tonight's meeting.
In 2 weeks.
Well, the date showed November 9th. From their end, so.
Yeah. They don't have an issue with that. I did some of them. I was bringing it.
Yeah, as long as.
Thank you very much. And I think one of the problems is when you're renovating a sixties building and trying to bring it up to 2022 standards, you're gonna find some deficiencies and they are finding some deficiencies. No different than when we went in and did the library and didn't perceive that there would be an oil tank hidden in the ground there that we had to deal with as the landowner. So there will be change orders that come forward. And as long as we are apprised of those, I think that is due course. Just so we're aware of those change orders that do come in. And unfortunately, there will be change orders. Just clarifying. Thank you.
Counselor Christie.
Respectfully, I hear what Madam McGonigal was saying, but in some of these are stated that they were originally included in the scope of work. Like, have we changed the design of any of the building? Like, for example, new window into open office area, change order number 7. Like, was that not in the original design? Why wasn't it included in the original scope of work?
They were not in the original design.
So we've changed.
And as the mayor pointed out, as work was being done, they had to be changes. Those changes.
And then further to that, so obviously the roofing contractor submitted their price with, I'm sure they're up to date on building code requirements. Why were the roof drains not included in the original price?
Very good point, and that was an issue that was raised a while back. And at the time, they didn't think it was necessary, but with the heavy rains, they saw the need for it.
And then lastly, so if there's new construction going on within the building, how can site construction with them framing up the door frames? How do we have a cost of $18,500 for new doors, frames and hardware? Like, I don't understand how.
Yeah, well, I can speak to that. What happened is they were originally planning on using the old door. And as they started looking at it, they said it didn't make sense to have a new building with old doors. So they just thought it would make more sense to finish it. So that's from the contractor's viewpoint. Originally, they were looking at replacing, just using the same door. So, and that's, I mean, if we had a choice, we didn't have to go with that. They used the old door, but I don't think we wanted a new building that looked new. Doors that were just.
Yeah, it's much like putting a new addition on your house and then leaving the rest of your house original. You want uniformity, so I kind of understand that.
And then crawl space ventilation, obviously that's almost a building code thing as well. That wasn't the original scope either.
The installation was done originally prior to the contractors working there, but they set function deficiency. They had.
I think it was ventilation, not insulation.
Yeah, ventilation.
Ventilation, sorry, but it was dealing with the installation too. And they're making, and I think there was one of the pipes, I guess, the ventilation pipes was not the right side. They thought they could work with the old one. They had to, I mean, you've got to make it consistent, and that's, I mean, it's a contractor pointing out those issues. And we have a choice, working with what's there, or making it better.
And I guess these prices are given by the contractor, so we're tied directly to that contractor. We can't ask for different prices.
All right.
Here, they don't-
But what we did here today was that on some of the products that they anticipate using, they have pre-purchased. For instance, some of the roofing material in the council chamber, they have purchased at prices that were previous and not futuristic, and are storing them within the Northern Child Building, the office there, to be utilized when they are needed. So they are trying to find ways to purchase and store product that they know will be needed in new construction as they move forward. A lot of the code requirements and shear walls, etc., it is very expensive. $200 for an 8-foot rod that is tied to the cement foundation and earthquake proof with the siting of that building so close to the river. It is structurally, it's not going anywhere. This is finished with the shear walls and 8-foot concrete foundation or 1.5 meter foundations, etc. And that was not anticipated in the original scope of the building with all these shear walls. Again, if we had been looking at a new site with a new build, it would probably be finished by now, but it would be much more expensive, as I understand it. And given that that is a Spia area and so close to watercourse, had we looked at demolishing and building elsewhere, that would reside as a park from here on in. So therein lies the problem of the previous council on making a decision for the renovation, aside from a new build. It was a struggle trying to find an appropriate route, and that's the one we chose. So I will live with that as we go in the future. But if anyone is interested, we can reach out to the contractor and have a little tour there. Once in a while, and we just have an update as to where they are progress wise. When you drive by there, you don't think anything is happening until you go into the building and see what they have done with the shear walls. And they're pouring concrete today in the entranceway just to level that all up. So just by driving by, you wouldn't think anything has occurred. Well, when you go inside, you can see what has occurred. That's what I mean. You don't see the inside construction, but bringing inside.
Yeah, well, if I may, I think council's got to be cautious. If you want to go in there and take a look at the construction progress, it would be delaying the project. So,
Yeah.
And that's something that you've got to be cognizant of. That could add cost of time. Now, Councilor, Andrew did raise a good point. If the project is not to be delayed, then, and if there further should change on it, then I should be able to, as long as you're okay with it, I'll report back as the mayor suggested. Council, what will change on it, so that we don't delay the project.
You want that a resolution
Well, you would need a resolution.
for you to do?
Okay, Councilor Frisbee.
So at the moment, representing the town like Cowichan is the architect. Are they doing weekly, monthly walkthroughs and
Monthly walk,
monthly walkthroughs?
sometimes more.
Because obviously my concern with this project is that, you know, we can keep getting nickel and dime through the whole thing with the budget can blow out. So, you know, I think as a council, we're just going to make sure that that there is a team like Cowichan represented there, so that these, you know, these change orders don't pile up into a significant amount.
Councilor Sandu.
So would this be appropriate then to make a motion for our CAO then to have the authority to approve change orders
Report back.
and then report back to the mayor? And council.
So second on. Councilor Osmond, all in favor of that motion? Leave that with staff.
And you may want to look at the recommendation that
Pardon me?
Another recommendation
yeah.
that I've got.
So I'll wait for Councillor Sandu poses a question.
Just a question regarding the architect who is a contractor for the town, who represents us. Is there a contract, like a flat fee contract for
It's
the
a-
architect?
For the service.
And is it like monthly or is it a set rate that?
Whenever he puts the time.
And so do you have a budget in mind as to what the overall cost?
I did, yes.
And will we be able to stick with that?
I love you. Yeah.
You can get back to.
Because of change orders I've had.
Could you report back in January then to
Sure.
council? Thank you.
There's that recommendation. Oh, got it in front of me. We have a recommendation that the committee recommend the approval of change orders numbered from 3 onwards, and that council authorize the continuation of the municipal hall project into the new year so that the project may be completed by March of 2023. So I'm looking for Councillor Sandu, seconded. No, this is a recommendation, seconded by Councillor Austin, so all in favor, of recommendation. Passed. Move that one along. And then we're moving on then to the municipal hall generator installation. Joseph,
Yeah, this, we applied for a grant on the generator because that's going to be the emergency center. And UBCM approved grant, the maximum grant is $25,000. But at the time when we had put in the application, the generators were a lot cheaper. And obviously you can see the prices now. This is with installation. So we did get 3 quotes from our electrical contractor, the engineering contractor. And so that you can see the differences in prices. And we've gone with the lowest. We're recommending that we accept the lowest, which means we'll get $25,000 on that project. The difference will be
no, move the record. So the recommendation is that the committee recommend approval for the supply and installation of a generator at the municipal hall from Frontier Power Products in the amount of $93,901.65 plus GST. Moved by Councillor Sandu and seconded by Councillor Frisbee. Yes.
Just to the CEO, so is this propane or is it diesel that, diesel,
that was a recommendation.
was diesel?
So calling the question, all in favor? Unanimous. Now we will move on to, delegation is done. So correspondence, there is none. So Director of Finance, please, for the financial report.
Thank you, Councilor Rebecca. The statements are there to the end of November. You have outstanding payables and work on your end has started. So these numbers moving things, obviously. The business license renewals were mailed out early December, and then the 2023 dog tags are now available as well at the town office. We received the summer student grant funding for the visitor center, $2,000, and that's now shown on the statements. The business license outstanding accounts are at $3,400, and I think those are probably doubtful of collection. We have been making attempts to collect those. And to date, we've sold about half of the niches at the columbarium site. So 14 were sold this year, compared to 9 last year. Later in the agenda, we'll have the rates for 2023 for council review, as well as the M&P audit service.
Any questions for Councillor Sandra?
Just a few. The business revenue, so that's business licenses.
Yes.
So $3,400 is outstanding. What's been our past history with?
That's typical of businesses that have closed down and that won't pay or kind of
So it's not really
Or
any
they're
that are running right now that we could say,
Or they were operating in town because they were building here, but no longer are, so they're not going to pay.
okay, so it's not just,
Yeah, all sorts of reasons, and that number is about.
okay. The other couple, the interest on investment, that was nice to see.
It's got the increase in the interest rate, which went from about 0.25 and we're over 3% now, so.
Won't see that too often. Public work, so seasonal decorations, I noticed that would there be any use of the budget this year for seasonal decorations?
Yes, we've, I think, spent about 2,000. It just hasn't shown up in the report yet.
Could we also, a few years ago, we made a motion for any excess snow removal funds that would go into a separate.
We have a
Account.
bylaw.
Can you report back at the next meeting next month, just as to what's in the account and? One more, sorry. Saywell Park improvements. The budget was 33,000 and actual to date is 41,000. So I was trying to think of, I was visually looking at Saywell for improvements, so is there,
The roof,
is that what that is?
yeah,
Saywell Park? improvements?
the building roof. So the roof. It goes back.
Was there not a grant for the roof?
Yeah, but you have to show this.
Yeah, you have to show it, yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor President.
Just on the parks as well, the footbridge improvements, there's 60,000 budgeted for that. Was that the duck pond walk bridge and where does that project sit?
So that's for the duck pond bridge.
Yeah,
Yeah, we haven't done anything on it yet. We gotta do some repairs for the winter.
Yeah.
And we're gonna come up with a plan to repair that if it's repaired.
that must be a pretty substantial repair, I guess.
Yeah, I just had a contractor there today looking.
Okay. There's also a couple of the Lakeview Park, this Lakeview storm upgrades and Lakeview washrooms. They were budgeted $30,000 for Lakeview washrooms. Sorry.
Yeah. We looked at expanding that and with the local contractors being very, very busy, we didn't do much. We couldn't do anything with it.
Right.
It's as simple as that. We couldn't get someone to take a look at expansions. And again, we're gonna hopefully look at it this year. And make some improvements.
So does it just get rebudgeted then?
Yeah,
Next
That's what
year?
we would do, yeah.
Councillor Sandy?
Something like that, through to Mr. Smith, can that be looked at earlier in the year where we start in January asking like contractors to look at these projects instead of kind of?
do.
We do?
We do. It's very, very difficult. There's even some things that we're doing right now that people are saying, wait a minute, we're not gonna go look at you until next year.
So we're not waiting until our budget's passed or anything,
No.
that's what I was wondering.
We try and set it up in advance.
Yeah.
And in fact, we looked at a portable last year. And that'll probably be what we're gonna end up doing again this year, I'm sure, like one of the backwood trailers that we see all over the place. If we have to, we'll go that way, for a short term. What we'd like to do is an extension. And so, yeah, we budget for it, and it's just not always easy to get someone to do it.
And if I may, the covered roofs at the info center and the covered area is a good example. I mean, it took, I think, 3 years before we could get somebody to do it.
Yeah.
So we keep budgeting.
And we had lots of quotes, but people couldn't do it.
They promise, they make a promise.
So we're lucky,
Yeah.
in fact, with the visitor center, at Sable Park Room, and with the education center as one, we were lucky enough to get some local contractors that could step forward. But, you know, it had to be persistent. So we started early, I promise you.
No, thank you, I just thought that.
Unfortunately, the longer it's put off, the price goes up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyone else have any questions on the finance? Thank you, Ms. Gill. Okay, so we'll move on to the building inspector's report. has. Any questions on that?
Slowing down.
Going down one time a year.
I have a question.
Yes, Councillor Austin.
The 163,330.80, that is permit fees. Where does that show in the financial report? Does it just, I don't see it under permit fees, but is it?
Building permit.
Okay, building permit fees, okay. On the revenue. bill.
You have to remember, it may not be exact. His calculation.
Everything another permit.
The same.
Yeah. just a bit-
We'll move on to the Lake Cowichan Fire Department report for October of 2022 in the amount of $14,510.41. But we don't need approval, or it just goes on to.
That one needs, the fire department needs to do.
Pardon me?
Fire department needs to do.
Needs approval for that.
I'll move that.
So Councillor Austin will move that amount. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Frisbee, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Sandu.
Just, we had talked about at the last meeting, just removing, any addresses for medical.
Yeah.
I noticed there's,
one.
Something I haven't broached with the fire chief yet.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any more questions? Okay, so we'll look for call, pay out that amount. All in favor? Write the check. Okay, so now we'll move on to our fees and services bylaw. And we're looking for recommendation for fee increases for 2023 and beyond. So, is it, would like to speak?
I think the director of finance can make
Okay,
both with it.
perfect.
And so
So it's shown on Schedule A there is what we're proposing the new rates be, and in my handwriting beside there was what the rate was in the previous bylaw. We want to move the Lakeview Park Reservation campsite fees, the per night fee from 36 to 37, and the tenting fee from 25 to 30, the water and electrical fee from 11 to 13. And the call-in reservation booking fee was $11 per night, so maximum of 3 nights, so it was 33. To just make it around $20 for that one. The additional persons in the site was previously 13, we want that to be 14, and the mortgage we're moving up to $20. So we'd like to do that. Schedule B is the education center. So we would like to move up the adult fees to $155, the youth and school groups from 100 to 115. There were no changes to Schedule C and D. And then on Schedule E under the sign fees, the portable sign fee, we'd like to move up from $30 to $50, the tree cutting permit to $50, and the extra garbage container tag from $6 to $7.20. And those would be the rates we'd be looking to increase in the bylaw when we bring it forward next meeting.
But can I ask a question on the portable sign fee in front of businesses? This is a yearly fee.
well, it's supposed to be yearly, but we only
We only
charge
charge once.
For one time and that's it. Okay,
Okay.
and who monitors it if people have paid the fine or the fee?
Yeah, that's good. Forever, really, unless it changes that.
Okay. Any questions on Councilor downgrading?
Oh, no, that's
Mayor McGonigal.
I'm either title at the moment. Through you, Madam Chair, to either Ms. Gill or Mr. Smith, under Schedule B, we're looking at per adult moving from 135 to 155. And given the rustic nature of the facility, are we discouraging groups from participating with that type of increase?
Okay, well, good question. We've always been very careful of that, but in this past year, if you take a look at our budget, for example, for heat, it's really propane. Right, between the propane and electricity or cooking and stuff like that, we had to increase prices. And so basically we did look at it quite closely. And if you do the math, there's about a 15% increase on these on the schedule. And all of the groups that we've got coming next year, there's about 111 days that I've already pre-booked. That, you know, by customers that are either coming back or promised that they would, you know, come for another week or 3 days or 5 days, whatever it is. And every one of them understand that I told them about 4 months ago that given the cost of big inflation that was happening, we would have to go up by about 15%. And everyone said they understood, and that's just the way it is. So we may lose the odd group, but there's nothing else we can do at this point. And the other thing I want to mention is that, and no one brought it up, that with electricity and propane, we are starting to look at some alternatives because those costs are just not sustainable. There are some opportunities to look at some things, but there aren't any big grants for commercial enterprise like ours. Unfortunately, for making changes, but we will look at all kinds of, heat pumps, etc. Hope that answers your question.
No, that's good.
I think we're fairly safe.
Yeah, and just a follow-up comment, I mean, when we see the projections of pricing and cost of living going anywhere up to 10%, I mean, this would fall into line. Are we similarly priced to another facility, similar like Strathcona Lodge, for instance?
Well, there's only a few facilities like ours actually in the province. And there are some comparisons, there's no question about it. But like Strathcona Park Lodge, their fees are actually higher. But what they do is they offer more programming, more adventure programming, rock climbing, etc. We don't do that so much anymore. So mainly we're offering retreats to adult groups and organizations that bring their own programming. So ours is a little bit different. So these costs are the beginning. So if someone comes for, whether it's for a wedding or for an educational program, they may include a kayaking group or something like that, or naturalists coming. Those prices are on top of all that. And so we are similar to other organizations, but we're not higher. We're in the North Vancouver Outdoor School, same thing, but or Canada, for example. And a lot of those organizations are subsidized very heavily. We, we're close to breaking even, and we contribute a lot differently with the amount of organizations that we're involved with, whether it's like the campsite or visitor center and that kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you. And
So I think we're safe.
one final one, if I may, and as we move forward, we've talked a number of years about business plans, et cetera. And when you mentioned some of the programs in Strathcona, whether it's rock climbing or whatever, as we move in the bike lane or hike lane entity, whether it's mountain biking or hiking in some of the areas that the Trailblazers have established some land use rights with Mosaic, would that be afforded an opportunity in the business plan to look at that, accommodating those bikers, mountain bikers, to be housed within that facility as well? Just a thought about a business plan moving forward. We've chatted many times about how we can expand the off-season portion of our programs, because summer we don't have a problem. Apparently mountain bikers don't care about the weather. They will bike in 3 feet of snow, or maybe not that, but I'm just trying to think outside of the box, fill that gap in the winter area.
Okay, good question. I think what's happened, you've probably noticed that the bookings that we're starting to get again are also happening in January, February. March is heavily booked. We're starting to fill that up with other groups and organizations already, according to the business plan that we've had in place for a long time. For example, we have to target an audience that will use a very rustic center. And unless the town, we won a lottery and of $20 or $30 million, you can see what renovations cost with the municipal hall. We don't have that, appeal to the crowds that could come for beautiful spas and hot tubs and saunas, etc. We offer a beautiful place in a rustic situation, and that's our audience. And I think that's what's happening. And we can show that given the bookings that we have.
And I'm certainly not interested in turning that into a Whistler, but, with the mountain biking that does occur there, it is throughout communities that do entice those people to stay and spend money in local businesses, et cetera, et cetera. So just thinking outside where we can fill that gap. Thank you.
Yeah. Can I just add one more thing? Sure. For example, if you take a specialized audience like that, I think it's a great idea. But if there was a group that came to me and said, hey, Dalton, we're interested in providing, we need accommodation for 40 people or 50 people, and we're all cyclists, we're doing different trails in the Cowichan Valley. Absolutely, we would say yes, and we'll make a custom deal, and we'll make sure that they fall within our prices. So we do that. And to give a further example, the mushroom group that comes, and I can be very vague about some of these things, mycologists, they come and they take a look at our area, and they book from year to year. So they just book for next October, for example. And I gave them the only weekend that they could take because they got bounced from what they wanted. But there's a specialized group. No different than people cycling.
And I'm not suggesting one person drop in and decide that
Yeah.
this is a hostel. I'm looking at groups that size, whether it be
Okay.
Grand Fondo or some sort of, that event that they promote in the future once it is established.
Well, we are available.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Thank
For
you.
sure we are.
Just on the Schedule A with the campsite fees, is the same equation being made to that for the increase of services compared to what we're increasing the site fees for?
Pretty close, yes.
Is there,
I think like 50%. At the time, it was 50% for the education center, and when Ronnie and I were talking about the rates, we looked at that and
That high.
I think, we went as high as we could without taking advantage of other. We want to make sure people come to our area, so we're not pushing them away. So again, we're not the highest on the island, and we're not the least expensive. We're kind of in the middle.
The other thing we did on Schedule A was we removed the off-season things.
Yeah.
We did that at the education center a few years back, and now we've done the same thing with campground.
with Lakeview, what was the vacancy rate like this summer?
It's a good question. Every weekend, we would turn people away, probably 25 to 40 people a day. No question about that. During the week is a little bit different, but during the July and August months, full for most of the time. Every day is almost a weekend. And the special events that happen, for example, they're oversubscribed. I mean, because of Sunfest happening with Lake Shelton this year, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm getting phone calls. Just say, by the way, can we book well in advance? No, it opens up at a certain time. So it's very, very busy.
Yeah.
And so others, other campsites are exactly the same thing. Unfortunately, we turn a lot of people away.
So,
Getting calls already for people wanting to book the campground.
so with that in mind and pricing, and I understand the finances with grant money and stuff don't appear as they always are. But it did, the Lakeview campground did post a loss this year, is that correct? No? It did. It made,
It always makes.
They've made that money, yeah.
but is there an opportunity to increase that price to take advantage of the supply and demand?
Even further?
Yeah.
Well, Ronnie and I laughed because one time one of the people that looked after our websites, our bookings from the States, they suggested that maybe you should say it, though.
Yeah, they suggested that our prices were low,
Yeah.
and so. But in comparison, we do look at other campgrounds on the island, and we're not the highest, but we're not the lowest either. We're still in the middle there.
And the other thing, if I can add something to that, over the years, we're coming to a point now in our community that, we have attracted people. And we're attracting them because a lot of things are happening. Hopefully, some of the things that councils and in the past and present council have suggested. So we've tried to improve Sable Park. You know, we've got a dock there that help people go tubing and kayaking and all these kind of things. Lakeview Park has been improved somewhat, we can always use upgrading, always. And so we're attracting people, and except for the very, very winter months, we don't have a problem now with attractions. But I think we attracted people by having prices that were reflective of people that should be encouraged to come. Now, it's only now that we're at the level where we can take a look at what you're suggesting is that a little bit higher. And that's what we tried to do this year with both the center and the campsite, a little bit higher. And the campsite, I don't know, there's no real.
Site where, I mean, the campsite was developed when, what's happened is that the equipment people are driving is getting bigger, but the campsite is getting smaller, and trees, weeds. Vegetation grows in, so we're constantly cutting it back, but that is the limitation there. It's not, but it definitely is still full. We have more people that want to come, would be at bigger sites. We would even be a bigger attraction.
And
But we don't have.
And if more were electrified, we can have more of it. And only fit, booked is booked.
Yeah.
So,
And I was looking at comparison sites, so these are single sites that you classify them.
Yeah.
You're gonna fit one unit on them.
yeah. When, again, not to repeat what we're talking about, but when we first designed that, we did it with consultants, and a lot of us were very involved. And I have pictures from those early days of, we had truck and campers in there as an appeal, truck and camper. Well, we're getting tents again, but the trucks and campers are now 30-foot moorings with satellite dishes that just go up automatically, So things are changing. We run out of room, quite frankly, to expand, which is up to improve services.
Thank you.
So we're looking for a resolution for the fee for services. We have to do each one
No, do
separately
the
all
entire
together.
thing and then we will get back. Council, by way of a bylaw.
Councillor Sandu, seconded by Councillor Frisbee. All the question, all in favor? Okay. Parks and Recreation. We're looking for the Parks report from the superintendent of public works and engineering, please.
Okay, so you got the report there for parks, there's not a lot to report on. Duck Pond Kinsman did a great job at other than our grass didn't take off because we missed the season and just wasn't enough time, so we'll have to reseed that on the springtime. The other parks are winterized, and we're just working on other capital projects. See what we're gonna do next year.
Any questions?
And those capital projects will come back for our approval when it's available. We'll be there for the budget discussions moving forward. I think.
Well, one of the things that we have to look at, I think, is the abuse that sometimes happens, that we sand it up. Because the campers, when they go through, that's okay, the cave, and most of them do caves. They use analysis. We also have others who come in and fill in big jugs and big whatever, and don't care. So I think we have to do a system that, which is either point operated credit cards for people. No, we get our money's worth. We can do.
Councillor Sandu.
Yeah, just, so something like that type of system, also then, until you pay, when you pay, then you would be able to do it, so you couldn't do anything until you actually. So staff is going to look at.
We are looking at it. So
Okay.
just wanted you to
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Really glad. Thank you.
Perfect.
And unfortunately, those systems can be bypassed as well. By very, yes, but again, not, at least it's user pay system and not on the honor system, and there has been quite a bit of talk about the Sandy dump moving forward, that it would make more money in that user pay system, so this is where we can compare what the capital investment of that would be to what our return on investment would be over time, so I'm gonna be interested in seeing what that is coming forward.
So a question, how much money did we get this year from the Sandy Dump? Or is it total? I didn't.
Well, I
look
think it's in the,
Usually,
the finance report.
I know, I didn't see it. I just wondered if you know at the top.
But
It's
it may not-
usually
it may
between
not be
8 and
breakdown.
10.
How much was?
thousand.
I think less than other years.
Pardon?
I think it's fairly comparable. I can get that
It
number.
was 8,000 1 year, I think, or so.
More than that.
Yeah, so we haven't done that bad.
No,
So perhaps, if I may, you could forward those numbers to council, just so we can give a comparative on when that comes to capital discussions.
Yeah.
How we want.
maybe you want to do a comparison of the last one.
Yeah,
Please, last 5 years, if possible.
And we do get a lot of people use it and don't pay. Even
Yeah.
when we're, the crew's up there working, I've been there, people use it, and I'm standing right there, they back up and leave. So we want to get one that you gotta pay.
we should have a camera there. They're on camera.
There is a.
Is that- is it working?
But it doesn't, yeah, it's working. and
Does it work?
People don't get,
Oh,
they're gone.
I thought it didn't actually work. Oh, it worked.
Well, we get some interesting notes put in it, you know, so it looks like they put something in it.
A piece of paper.
I'm a welder, give me a call. You know, it's just
Oh, that's good.
interesting notes.
Good time. Okay, all right.
No more questions on that one?
Okay, yeah.
So now we're going on to the CAO Waste Management and the Bear Smart program.
Yeah, just the last council wanted us to look at adopting bylaws that would deal with the bear problem. So at that point, we said it would make more sense to incorporate the requirements of the attraction bylaws into the garbage bylaw. And so that's what I've done here. And as you can see, other communities have also done the same thing. I've given you examples of it. And what I've done here is highlighted the changes to the existing bylaw. And I'm sure you had a chance to look at it. And we've also tightened out types of fines. We want to put additional fines. We're looking, right now, we only got $25. We haven't really gotten to put those fines. But we should be looking at higher fines so that they would get greater compliance. If people knew that there was a higher fine, they would comply. The going rate right now is $300. But I think for us, if you look at $100, that's reasonable. I don't think you want to, you know, penalize people that much.
I think we do.
I mean. And the other thing is, people put out the garbage for safety.
They're not.
Sometimes a couple of days. And you know, I don't think that should be allowed. So those people should be fine.
So is this $100 per occurrence?
Correct.
Would there be a way to put in the bylaw that each occurrence at that same address
Yeah, that's, it will be in
could be
the.
prorated higher each time? Or is it
That's,
just easier
yeah,
to?
that's not really how. $100 per day is quite good.
Or per day
You
or
wouldn't put
per
it
occurrence?
Correct. If it goes on 2 days, $200. So if if they put it out 2 days ahead of.
And so how do we monitor that?
It's, you know, it's something that
We'll have to look
it'll
at.
be tough, but we will have.
Counselor Austin.
Yeah, because the bylaw officer is not around during those days, I know
Oh, we
we
also-
drive down Satlam and we see them out at 5 o'clock on Tuesday when they don't come till Wednesday. The CAO or the They're Aware chap, I mean, was going around putting little tags on them.
Yeah.
But other than that, nobody knows who's
Yeah,
doing
just
it.
because you don't catch them that day.
Yeah.
You don't have to ticket them that day, as long as you're aware that such and such an ad, without telling the day before, you can ticket. After the fact.
Councillor Simon.
Just following through with that to our CAO. So could any of our staff, public works staff, whatnot, if they see something like that,
Just advise us and we will ticket.
so
I've actually gone.
and so do you need to take pictures? Like if it's 2 days in a row, like as a resident, I could say, well, prove to me that my garbage can was at the curb for 2 days.
Pictures are good.
So are we allowed to, is our staff allowed to take these pictures?
Yes. Of the garbage cans, as long as not, as long as no people.
One other thing, regarding the fines, I find that $100 is peanuts in one way that this, our community, and I'd really like to have something from the conservation people as to how many bears were actually put down this year. Because what I've been told is that through Cowichan Watershed Board is that this is the highest community on Vancouver Island of bears having been put down because of our ignorance. So to me, I'd like to see that higher, that,
That's up to you. I'm just giving you a suggestion here, so if you think it's a guy, that's what I'll put.
well, it's,
So just last week, we had an incident where a business put out garbage. They've done it a number of times. They take a bag and they put it beside one of our public receptacles. So we've asked them a few times. So the other day, that person did it again. I phoned their office. They went to their boss's telephone and I just told them if it's, this, so I don't think we did it. I said, well, it's been reported to me it is, and it's a, if conservation gets wind of it, it's a $2,000 fine. He was there within 10 minutes picking it up, so.
Yeah, well, that's good, a warning like
Yeah,
that.
and our fines, I think, are higher. I mean, yeah, the conservation is, their fines are high and they're not happy with this area. They've made that very clear.
can I just follow up through just on this, is then, can we ask in the new year that we have an information meeting with the conservation officers, like kind of preparing ahead of 2023. And as part of this overall discussion as to what we're going to do as a community regarding our garbage and whatnot, I think it would be good for us to hear from these individuals that have to put down bears. It's a big difference.
So should we look at setting this aside until after that time? Should we set this aside then, because we're looking for reading the first time?
Yeah, it'll come to council next meeting, with reread, because we also have to look at the rates. So if you can just give it a couple of readings if you want,
Okay,
and then have a meeting. So the only issue is, the rates have to be enacted prior to the bills going out. So it's for the next year.
thank
You may want to give it 3 readings and then you have to rescind per reading and so forth.
Okay, so tonight we'll look at.
Well, I'll just
reading
bring it back
first.
to the next meeting,
Okay, it's coming back, okay.
if you're okay with the bylaw and then you go on change it.
Yeah, and I want to get to the actual bylaw, just of what's been highlighted too, is just go over that, because there's some things there, I was just wanted to address.
So we'll go to Councillor Austin first.
So I've been asking about the fed bear as a dead bear sign, because it's tourists, it's not just the people that live here. It's the tourists that come and leave the garbage outside of cans, and it's not just the town, it's the whole area. Because some of the areas around town in CBRD don't have the same, they don't do organics like we do. And they don't pick their fruit in lots of areas. I see one across the street from where I volunteer and the apples are just falling. So it's a whole bunch of different things. It's education, if people want to be educated. And we did have the Bear Aware chap here, and he did come to all the little groups around town in the summer, you know, Yubo days and honeymoon days and talk to all the people. So he did a lot of education this summer. Whether or not they're listening to that, I don't know. And I think we need something for elk now too, because the elk jumped over the fence of my neighbor and tried to get in my yard to eat my kale. And the footprint, honestly, Gordon saw it, he actually was looking out at it. So that's another problem, because people have domesticated a lot of these elk. They're feeding them and they're coming in. They're dangerous too, especially when they're in the rut. So I'll leave it at that. We'll get a sign for them too, leave town. Thank you.
Mayor McGonigal.
Thank you. And aside from strengthening up this bylaw, I think we also heard loud and clear during the campaign about bear resistant receptacles. And I would like to see moving forward in the budget discussions, implementing bear resistant receptacles within the ornamental garbage cans as a pilot project before we look at the residential portion of it. When we look at increasing the size of the can, that is not the intent. And those are the only ones that do come bear resistant are the 120 liter sizes. So are we encouraging more waste that way? I think if we look at the ornamental ones that are impacted by wildlife currently, the lids are torn off in front of various businesses through the uptown portion of Lake Cowichan and other areas. If we focus on that, maybe on a budgetary item that comes forward as a possible way to mitigate some of that, and then move forward looking at other options in the bylaw with higher fines for those that do the timing of putting their receptacles out, and then looking at what can be implemented in bear resistant within the current structure that we have in our receptacles. I know that you can't just put a bear-proof lid on the ones that we currently have. So that would be a starting point, at least, to try to mitigate some of the interactions with wildlife in the waste system, because we are the highest in probably Vancouver Island on bear complaints, and conservation is quite perturbed in the number of calls that do occur here. So some way that we can mitigate some of that, I think we are obligated to do that. We're living within the wildlife area and impacting every time we do a subdivision, we're impacting every time we do logging, we're impacting. So we have to try to coexist, and this may be a starting point to move some of that wildlife interaction a little bit lower.
I had a conversation with the mayor when we were talking about the possibility of the larger totes, and then we have increased tipping fees. And if 85 to 90% of our residents are abiding by the garbage regulation, I don't think it's fair to go the larger cans, increase the cost, the tipping fees on them. I think we should be targeting the ones that are not conforming to the bylaws. Yeah.
I thought so.
Councillor Sandu.
I was just gonna say that I think also a big part of this is we need to really push a public education in the community in 2023. And one of our first public meetings would be like just have a theme of however many public meetings we have a year, and have a certain theme where we can just focus on this one or two things specifically to address it, right? And that would be a good one to have with conservation, with Bear Smart and all that kind of stuff, right? A public meeting where the community could come, they could be educated, whatnot. And because unless we get the message out to them, it's just going to carry on. We can have all the big toes we want and whatnot, but at the end of the day, educating people on how to properly recycle or do our organics, and we should have next to no garbage if we properly do our recycling and whatnot. So we have to really start pushing that, in my opinion, in 2023. So are we going over the bylaws, that this bylaw of each page?
It's up to you. It's not up to you.
So can I ask a question? So on page, I think it's schedule C, page 13, page 14, the bear resistant enclosure. So is that residential?
It
So-
could be both. Like, if we pick up the garbage, or the private entities pick up the garbage, that's a requirement. So the garage still,
So if somebody doesn't have a garage, then if we
they
did,
will have to build a.
really?
Yeah.
Okay, and is the town gonna fund this for them to build these?
No, I mean. You can't.
We'll have to personally,
It's fine.
and if people don't, because they don't have the means to budget this sort of structure, then what is the fallout? Right? Because
But
I can't support that.
I was gonna say, I think we're told to put, and what I did when the bears were around our place, I put my garbage can in the basement or in the carport close to the basement door. And I think they have said in the past, if you can't, because our neighbors built a nice enclosure, they have lots of room, we don't have a room for that. So if it's on there, it could say, keep them within your, in your building, right? Or in one of those
Yeah.
enclosures. And the bears don't usually bother mine.
I think the intent is not to put it outside. We can
Not over
attract
past
that.
the front of
If
your
you can
house.
actually put it in a safe location, it doesn't matter. And I know we talked about, having bear-proof septic. The issue is we have automated trucks, an automated truck, how do you really deal with that? You're going to put it out there, then it takes the latch off, whatever.
Oh, man.
So it's not gonna work, unless we come up with a different solution.
So is this bylaw saying that every household has to have an enclosure built?
Well,
if
that's
they
why
have?
we have a schedule that shows an example of one, but I
Example.
think the unit, the Republican unit on North Shore Road, they put something. It's not anything fancy, put something that you don't have to put big building. Make sure that's something that will protect the garbage from.
But again, if people don't have the means to fund that, then this is a bylaw that is a bylaw to be enforced. So if we're not going to enforce it,
Then don't put.
what's the point of having it in here?
I think that's what we face with a lot of bylaws.
Absolutely. But this one,
Councillor Frisbee and then Mayor McGonigal.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I don't think it's realistic
No.
to ask residents to build anything. Well, I think there may be options to have at least lockable, something that's made to be lockable, even if it is a garbage can that's lockable, that they have to, that residents have to do, but I mean, asking them to build something like this is unrealistic. In my opinion. And then, sorry, the other thing with the, we talked about the fines and the average fine. So is that something that we can discuss as far as a deterrent for people? Like, I know we're doing the first reading here, but if we did want to increase that, will we discuss now or will we leave it until that point?
It's best now. Or you can change it then, just give us 1 or 2 readings and then make the change. It's really up to you. It's easier if you do it now, so that council can pass 3 readings.
Yeah, I think that we do need to discuss further the fines and also the promotion of it. Like, I realize we can hold town meetings to address things like this, but maybe some of the residents that would be, that we're trying to target wouldn't attend that. I think we also need to come up with a way on how we're actually going to promote that we have all this bylaw into place so people are aware of it. Maybe online would probably be a better option. And that's $100 enough to deter people. But again, with the bylaw containing that building, I think it's unrealistic at this time.
We would just change, I may just maybe come up with language that you just suggested. and not make it that schedule which shows the building, and we just put something else, put in language that would fit, you know, the issue that you raised, having show a building that, because that building can be in a garage too.
So could I pose a question to you? Is there the availability to do something with new builds? To be able to say any new builds must show a bear-proof enclosure?
Actually, that would be the question.
And then that way it's forward going?
But if they have a garage. or
That's the same,
whatnot,
that's
then
good.
they-
Yeah. But then they would be showing they had the availability to put it in a garage. But if they're building without a garage, they would have to show something. So
So
I
I
don't
do a
know,
low flush toilets.
yeah, so I don't know how we would,
We'll have to change the building, level. to reflect that.
so, Councilor Sandu.
Just with our current garbage bins we have, through to our public works superintendent, is there anything that out there that can be put on? And that residents would just unlock themselves before when they put their garbage bin out at the curb?
So the bins we have, there isn't. I talked to a welding shop in Youngton, they made them for bigger bins, but not the size we have. We'll take one of our cans down there. And see what they can do. I have a sample can from Rollins when we purchased them all, it's a little bigger one. They have a band around it that locks it. So I'm gonna get a price on what that costs. They would have to build it. But another thing, a couple of gentlemen from the strata above the big drugstore, they came to me a while ago because they were having a lot of bear problems. And what they've done is they've made their own, just lock latches, I think 3 of them on the things. And they unlock them, they keep them locked, and then the day of garbage, they come and unlock them. And the latches go down, so our guy doesn't have to get out of the truck. So, and they're saying it's working pretty good. I haven't been out there and looked at it, but our drivers are saying it works. There is a few little options we are looking.
So I believe that a commercial, maybe I've got an old one, but the commercial, the green bins already have that latch that you can lock.
Some,
Some do.
like I have one from Rollins, it came like that, but unfortunately it doesn't fit our garbage cans because ours are smaller,
Right.
so.
It's a commercial one that I've got.
Yeah,
Like I have it
oh, I
locked
see, yeah,
and the beer will pick it up and try and smash it, but they can't get into it.
Yeah.
So,
because they're metal bands on it, right, then
Yeah.
they can't squish the can.
Councilor Sandu.
I was just thinking with, if we work with conservation in the new year, and really promote this, is there like possible grant opportunities out there? Like, we're gonna be Bear Smart Community 2023. And that there could be money out there for new garbage cans or towards new garbage cans, or, you know what, I'm trying to think outside the box. And if we spin it right, could we?
We'll look at it. The only issue with that is that it only applies to some people, not the entire town.
Yeah.
Small person.
And we did spend a fair bit of money on the first round of government.
And then question is what do we do with those garbage cans?
Yeah, it's a lot of cans.
Afterwards, yeah, it is, so. Mayor McGonigal.
Thank you. I'm having a little problem with Schedule C as well. I think if that was focused to commercial entities instead of residential, even that in itself would be problematic. When you look at some of the ones that are currently not picked up by our system, by a contractor, I think that is where we were having some interactions. They have mitigated that with some locking devices, but those are still out in the open and not enclosed. I would encourage those that are not enclosed in the larger receptacles to perhaps have some sort of structure. But I couldn't support me having to build a barrel system enclosure on the side of my house, or I put them in my laundry room when it's bear season, and keep them out of the way of the wildlife, and it seems to work. So if that option and garages and carports may be an option, then I would think that the language in Schedule C could just stipulate that you do all humanly possible to deter wildlife interactions with you.
Maybe that, yeah, that makes sense. I think we'll change schedule.
No, that's fine, and that's why we bring it forward here. This is a template to move forward and try to get something that will work locally. I tend to agree with an increase in the fine, similar to Councillor Brisby. I don't suggest that we go to the 50,000 that Barrett marked, because you would be in litigation to try to recuperate that. I would think that $250 might be its starting point as a fine deterrent. But that's just me personally. We increase the fine from 100 to 250. Increase the fine from 100 to 250. Please.
It's 25 now.
What?
Then put it to 250.
$2.50?
$250.
I think it's important to say, like, I think we're moving in the right direction. This is good stuff, right? So, although, you know, there's some parts that we need to change, this is, it's heading in the right
Good
direction.
start.
And you can always change it. You
Yeah.
know, it doesn't work, you change it.
And if I may, Madam Chair, the most important part of getting this forward is to get the bylaw passed for the increases that are coming. They are coming. Significant increases in landfill and organics are budgeted within the CBRD waste stream system. So we have to incorporate that in the bylaw. We can always amend the other language within the bylaw at a future date. So if we're not happy with the fines or the structures, as long as by the implementation of the notices going out that we have those fee changes, we can come back to this at any time if we find that it isn't working and amend that bylaw to incorporate those changes moving forward. But to start with, I would like to see a $250 fine and move forward from there.
Just one more thing. One of the other things we're doing at Public Works, the garbage trucks are, when they're going around and they see garbage cans that are overloaded, they'll lit up in the air. They're being left notices, and we're keeping track of the repeat offenders. We have a list of it. So they'll either be getting a final notice, or we'll bring those to Joe and they can fine them for that too, because they're not supposed to have the garbage still there open. That's it.
I need to keep going on, but I think I have neighbors. I'm gonna be careful, but I know that people aren't putting their organic into the organics very often. And again, even with your organics, that you've got stuff on the table at night, your bones and stuff, you keep those in the freezer until it's time to put them out. And you don't need a big freezer. I just use the small drawer freezer. So I think that's part of the problem. Because I notice when I drive around, the people that don't have those organic cans on at all, so. And I'm sure the garbage man or civil engineer, whatever he's called, knows who the addresses of people that don't do that.
No, they've got a list in the truck, so we'll keep it track.
So, yeah, we'll this first.
Well, that'll just be an amendment coming forward to council on our, we're not making.
We're not going to reading everything tonight.
We'll change schedule C.
Yeah, schedule C, we'll just so that you do everything humanly possible to.
And then the 250 goes from 1 to 250, and then it'll come forward at the regular council. Okay.
And I agree with Councillor Frisbee. This is a good start. At least we're showing that we're trying to mitigate some of the wildlife interactions. It's not going to be the panacea for interactions, but at least it's a start, and we can come back and tweak it as we move forward and see what might help in other communities. I tend to agree that we could have signage that says a fed bear is a dead bear wherever we feel that we have opportunities to place those. Public areas, I think, is a good opportunity. Whistler has them throughout their community because of their interaction, and their bears are a lot more aggressive than ours because they're grizzlies.
Grizzlies.
But anyways, that's for another discussion. We can talk about that later.
And once we do have the bylaw in place, would we have enough time to put it out with our billing?
What's that?
The change
Oh,
in
yeah.
the rates, the bylaw, to show people when they get it with their tax
And we
notice.
can actually send this issue, we can actually put it included in the notice.
Yeah, and that way they're aware of it, yeah, thank you. Okay, so we'll now move on to Superintendent, Public Works and Engineering report on Public Works. Would that be you, Jazz, or Dalton?
No,
You? Okay.
you guys have got the report, any questions on it?
We just like to hear you.
I know,
We
but
want you to read the whole
He
thing.
doesn't want to, no, because I don't have to bring my glasses.
Oh,
You have mine, guys.
Is there any questions
Go on.
from councilors, Councilor Frisbee?
Yeah, so with the sanitary, the lagoon and the sanitary main upgrades. So after speaking with Aaron Hamilton the other night, the Cowichan Lake First Nations, there was a report that he made me aware of that seemed to say if we were to upgrade our sanitary mains, the inflow and infiltration was improved, the wastewater lagoons wouldn't, the upgrades wouldn't have to be done. Am I reading that right? Have you seen that report?
I've seen the report, and I've seen also the reports we've had done over several years.
Yeah.
And there's some misinterpretation there in their report, in my opinion.
Right.
Is I will reduce the amount of fluids going to the lagoon, but it's not gonna clear our phosphorus problem. It's not gonna, we're gonna put screens in to take all the stuff that shouldn't be going into the river. There's 3 or 4 other issues that we have. It's not gonna correct that.
Right.
And that's why the ministry, we're not in compliance, and that's why we're getting these nasty letters from the ministry to get in compliance of those things more than the amount of that we get.
So this is just our current system, not an extension of our current system that we're talking about.
Sorry,
So this is the upgrades that we need for the wastewater lagoon are just for our current situation, not any extension of that.
both.
It's both.
Yeah. The old one needed this, and there was already a phase 1 done. There was another pond, a huge pond done. I can't remember the volume, but it's there now. It needs all the head work.
15,400.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it-
So it needs all the piping to it and the phosphorus removal screens, which is very expensive.
Right.
That's what we gotta do with, as well as iodine.
Okay, thanks.
That's why we're looking for granted. For that. Any other questions? Okay. One more questions? Okay. Well, then we're going back to the water main upgrades. Anyone has any questions for the superintendent?
I think we should explain the recommendation or our CAO should.
Well, I think what is suggested by the superintendent is something that needs to be done because of the, the growth in population, the growth in subdivisions. And we want to ensure that everybody gets proper flow in terms of fire flow, water pressure. We will have to enlarge the pipes, something like the water treatment plant. And so I think the number that superintendent gave us is $2.5 million. But, that's just a guesstimate. We need to move forward with getting a reliable number that would look at the options. I think we just assess a number of options, come up with the best optimum option that can be done for the least number of dollars. And then we should, once we get that, we should be applying for that. And I think if we don't have something in place ready to make applications, then, we're just not being realistic. So that's the superintendent recommendation there. My recommendation is like budget the dollars to get this project underway. At least have it. What do you call it? Something ready.
Already.
Yeah, so the recommendation is for $1,200 per unit to be for a fee to be, is there a fee at the moment?
There isn't a fee at the moment.
There is not a fee.
So I
So
think,
this is very-
but that wouldn't really help fund it.
It wouldn't cover
It
it.
wouldn't help. Him. And I think he had 200 units. You have 200.
No, right, we got about 120.
110, so.
Yeah, on the goal right now, that would probably be in effect by summer of 2023.
And you have to remember this charge will only apply to subdivision staff, not the First Nation.
Right.
Mayor McGonigal.
I'm a little bit confused at the addition of 1,200 per unit when we just approved an increase in the DCCs moving forward. Why that would not cover within the water portion of the DCC, or is there deficiency that was not anticipated in the twinning that you speak of? And it's just an anecdote.
No, actually, it's a good point. I don't think it was factored in the RDCC.
Well, it was, one, it wasn't totally factored in. And so what we, for each subdivision application, PLA, we, part of the thing was each subdivision has to do a water model. And each of the areas that where there's subdivisions going in, every water model showed that River Road and Indian Road isn't large enough to be the town. So there's two ways we can look at it. We can go to those developers and say, either you paid 100% of doing that line, or you can't subdivide. Or we take the whole town and say each one, everybody pays a little bit towards it, which is the more fair thing. Rather than grabbing one or two developers and say, you fund it for $2.5 million. Well, that's not really a fair way of doing it. So we came up with this figure because even if you put the ECCs toward it, we're not going to see any of that ECC increase probably for a year yet. Right now, one of the conditions in every permit, when we put the permits in, it says in that if we find some deficiencies, you're responsible for helping upgrade it. So this way, at least we're getting some funds towards that upgrade right now for the year or so that we don't.
Because there is a year grace period for the
That's right,
DCC funds
Yeah.
to take effect.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at the ones that have already been approved, and I won't use names, but some of them that are already in the building stage, would they be incorporated in that? Or
Yeah.
just the new
No,
ones coming?
new. No, these ones are all included.
Yeah, but they're not, even the ones that are.
Because every permit that I issue, I made it very clear in that if we find deficiencies in your water model, they pay.
Yeah, those ones, but
Yeah.
anything else, if there are a number of other subdivisions that don't do water model. So
Yeah.
you still charge them one.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to get at, that you're not incorporating $1,200 per unit in the 100 houses, for instance.
No,
Right. So, and there's the confusion, that each unit is.
No,
like
it's
each household. It's the new.
new developments. So
be
it
clear
would
on.
be new lots and or apartments or condos or whatever that goes to.
Yeah.
That's why we use the word unit. So
No, perfect. Thank you.
we have a similar one for sewer as well.
sure we do, and we charge the additional people on the other side of the road. And that was, that was implemented a number of years ago when the stag was.
But I read the recommendation.
I will just include it, if you're okay with it, we'll just include the people, so
I'll put it in the speaker service, so
that's
we
the
don't
best,
have to vote on it.
if you're okay.
Do we have to do a motion, pass a motion on it? So if I can read the recommendation first, So recommendation is that the town immediately charge all developments for newly developed lots or multifamily units a fee of $1,200 per unit. These fees would then be used towards the upgrades to the water supply main. These fees were arrived by taking a construction value of $2,500,000 and applying 5%. With approximately 110 units to be added to the system by mid-2023, this would add $132,000 to the town water fund. This will allow the town to hire an engineering firm to review design and provide a cost budget for these upgrades. Once we have this in place, the town can begin plans for funding the remaining 95% cost for the project. So I'm looking for a person to move. Councillor Frisbee, seconded by Councillor Austin, and call the question. All in favor? Good. Yeah, okay. Okay, so now we'll move on to water treatment plant.
So I just wondered if you wanted to allow staff to go ahead.
Oh,
With, just a recommendation that I've got in the bottom, if you so inclined.
oh, sorry, change the page now. Let me
Just
go
at the
back.
bottom.
Water main upgrades, right?
Yeah, just the recommendation,
Okay,
that's the committee.
I'll move.
no, okay. Moving the recommendation. That the committee of the whole needs to recommend authorization of a proposal call that would be issued to qualified engineering consultants for evaluating and analyzing the optimum upgrades required for the water main feed from our water treatment plant and for providing the required detailed cost estimates. And that's all question on that one.
And Councillor Sandy moved it.
Moved it, need a seconder, Councillor Frisbee again, call the question, all in favor? Now water treatment plant. That be back to our.
Yeah, so with the water treatment plant, it's just we haven't got any issues there right now. It's other than a few maintenance things we're working on, but no warnings or advisories in place. Everything's functioning fine.
Any questions?
Well, given the drug situation, we wouldn't have to bid it again. No, and that, I just say that in jest, because there are other communities that are struggling, Mount Washington, I encourage you to bring bottled water. Who would have thought that in December?
And they're using porta potties there.
Unbelievable.
And I heard they've gone to paper plates and stuff, so they don't have to wash dishes.
That's more food.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on then to Lake Cowichan, or sorry, new business, Lake Cowichan First Impressions Community Assessment. We'll go right ahead. And I look.
I really didn't see anything in here that concerned, me, frankly, but I was just curious as to who was part of this group that did a walkabout.
Yeah, so from the feedback that I got was they turned up on a Sunday. They said that they had contacted town staff.
Yeah, not me. Maybe they.
So we're not sure who they talked to, but then they contacted the Chamber of Commerce and Catherine Worsley was the one that took them around.
Was it Tourism Vancouver Island or Cowichan Tourism or destination?
Vancouver Island Tourism is now called 4VI.
Yeah, so it was
So
Ted,
that was who did it.
the old Ted.
Councillor Frisbee.
Town staff, were there anything that, any recommendations from the report?
Yeah, I know the, like manager had some thoughts.
Well, again, we were contacted from the visitor center, or I don't think any of us as town managers. That's for sure. I mean, there's some things in the report there's some good ideas, of course, in there, no question. But it's a little interesting to see, I think a bit reckless that there weren't more stakeholders involved.
Yeah.
Who are the stakeholders? That's very important. I mean, there's people in this room, obviously, that have been working for tourism and to improve tourism and opportunities. And really, when I first saw the report, I was very, very, very surprised. And it's not to say the report's bad, or they don't have some good ideas, but there's those ideas have come from obviously a small amount of people, not from those of us who are working in the industry. There was no discussion there of the campsite, which is huge. The education benefit attract business from all over as well. And I just find it a little reckless.
Councillor Snelling.
Well, personally, I would just like to receive and file this because to me, it's just a document. But if our town staff had been involved in this, I would be taking this more seriously in the recommendations and whatnot. But having an outside person oversee this with this group, to me, just it's not part of our strategic plan. Like anything that we've talked about is it's just somebody's opinion with no input. So
I, on the other hand, would like to invite 4VI to this table for a little discussion on, because there are some good ideas. And don't get me wrong, but as the entity that provides a lot of the services that are stated in here, you would think that as a stakeholder, we would have been consulted as well. So I'd like to get the point from 4VI as to what the process was, how it was incorporated, and where the deficiencies are that we see that were not implemented in the report because of lack of stakeholder input. So I would invite them here at a future committee of the whole meeting to have a wholesome discussion on the parameters within the scope of the study, second, the findings, and third, where the deficiencies are that we feel are very prudent in the report itself. So it's totally up to the table, but I would invite them here and just have a wholesome discussion.
Callum has come here before, maybe he's not with 4VI anymore. Pardon?
Yes,
Yeah, okay, he has been with us. I've been part of 2 or 3 of these over the years. We still have the Hanson report from 2001 or 2. They all come up very much the same. They want you to have stuff in the winter time, which people don't come here in November very often. In November, December, January, February, unless we can figure out something to do, which we have tried many years. I find it really odd. I think if they had contacted our staff, we would have gone around with them. We would have gone around and walked around and talked to them, and not just the one member of the Chamber of Commerce. That's wrong. That should have been within all of us because it's our town too, right? I mean, we have the Quebec and we have Lakeview and other things. So some of the stuff is interesting, but it's no different than what we got from the Hanson report 20 years ago. Very similar report if you can get a hold of that or go to my computer somewhere.
I obviously have a unique perspective on this, and I'll make sure I'm careful with how I approach this, but I think the inability for VI to meet with all the stakeholders is because there is no coordination between any of our tourism or the different organizations within Lake Cowichan. A lot of the time when we go to meetings, ma'am, we'll bring up West Kelowna and how that has transpired and how it's a year-round tourism centre that has been overrun without the infrastructure. So at the moment, my feeling is that in both the 2001 report and the 2022 report, is they've asked for some type of tourism coordinator. Now, if you look at our current tourism operators, with Sunfest and the Trailblazers Trail coming on board, and then our endeavors with the Click and the Info Centre and Centennial Park and the use of that in baseball and softball, and then all the different entities we have to deal with, the CBRD, 4VI, the Chamber of Commerce, and Tourism Cowichan, we are running into this West Kelowna situation if we don't address it, because there's no one in charge of it at the moment. And I think it's important that the town do step up and have a conversation whether this tourism coordinator role that could be expanded from the info centre person could be expanded into a role that takes on that tourism, so we don't run into those things that we are so worried about. So I guess I would like to hear the councillors' opinions on creating a tourism coordinator position to try and combat this.
I think we talked about that before several times. It's just getting the person to do.
And I think that would be, if I may, Madam Chair, through to you, I think that would be an opportunity for 4VI to show how they came to that conclusion with the stakeholders that they did speak of, and what they would see that moving forward and how it could be implemented within the corporation of the Valley Couch. When we look at the entities of the baseball fields, for instance, you're mentioning, that resides within the booking. We own the fields, the booking, and that lies a problem. There's silos, as you state. So where 4VI can specifically show us where the rationale of this possible position is, I would like to hear that. When we currently are requisitioning at a regional level for tourism and economic development, maybe that is the focus that we need to look at some sort of funding for some positions. And I'm not suggesting that we're doing that now, but we do have to look, as you stated, West Kelowna can be problematic, and we don't want to go down that road. So where is the rationale from 4VI? I think if we got a conversation face to face, that would give us more of an idea of how we could move forward with some sort of implementation, in my opinion.
I mean, I think we've maybe taken offence to this report from 4VI, where maybe we can look at, are there other opportunities here? 4VI has stated that there are funding options in their report for a position like that. When I talk about Centennial Park and the baseball and softball, it's more about bringing those tournaments to town and having someone work with them, which during the election, they were quite vocal about, like, they can't hold tournaments at the moment because of restrictions. So I think the 4VI report aside, if we are wanting to be proactive with tourism, this is something that we need to look into.
And if I may, because it resides in personnel, I think by discussing this position in the appropriate manner would afford us well in making that decision. So if we're looking at that implementation, that should be discussed at a separate meeting with the rationale coming forward, just so we don't impede the possibility of that. And there are grant opportunities for economic development within the Rural Economic Development Initiative was recently announced. Perhaps that could reside within this as well. So we have to be careful how we discuss this and move forward in implementing a new position within the town. That's all. Very good. Yes, thank you. But I do agree. I mean, there are some great things in here. I would like to get it from the creator of the report, just instead of reading it in a digital form. I think we can get more representation in person and then move forward from there.
So do we need a motion to invite 4VI?
I was just gonna ask Joel, but it's just direction, right, for staff to contact 4VI that we'd like that presentation for meeting. Yes, with them, thank
Just
you.
recorded in there.
Okay,
Can I just make one more comment?
Sure.
I don't think, for example, I want to clarify. In my situation, I say the report's reckless because reading through the report extensively, I find there's a lot of loopholes and presumptions of things that may or may not happen. For example, even food trucks. There's bylaws that we have for food trucks. It's nothing to do, someone has to know what the local bylaws are first. Because I don't think that we allow food trucks in certain places, for example. But I think, we don't want to be naysayers as a group. We want to take a look at things completely, for sure, no question about that. But I think that, it involves a complete team to do that. And I don't think the team was there to look at something, and that's a little bit unfortunate. That's why I say it's reckless.
And that's why it's a good opportunity to
Yeah.
bring them to the table when
And
we
then-
have everybody here.
And one last thing, a lot of the things here are for entrepreneurs to look at. And a lot of things that we can't do in community. And I think it's important for entrepreneurs to come in, whether it's baseball tournaments or tubing or kayaking or any of that kind of great playful stuff that's soft use in our area. Those are, people usually come for different reasons, and we are a community that is trying to attract tourism. I think that's right, that's why we're looking at that, but we should keep going.
Thank you. Okay, so we're now on to the MNP 2022 audited service plan. So that's going to Ms. Gill.
So this is the audit service plan provided by our audit firm. They've already been here for a couple of days and started the interim. So the report covers their risk assessment and also the new developments. So there's a bunch of new sections that are coming in that will apply to the financial statements, the audited financial statements for the year end. The big new one is CAS 315, where they have to go through and identify risk and material statement, inherent risk and all of that kind of good stuff. So that is going to mean this year that over and above the 3-year contract we have with them for pricing, there's going to be somewhere they're estimating between $1,000 and $3,000 extra for the implementation of that section CAS 315. So they've given us a timeline of when they will provide the statements, the audit materiality. Materiality is something that would affect someone reading the financial statements. It would affect their decision. That's the number that is material would affect it. So they're working with 300,000 for this audit. They've got a list of members who are on their team. The fees are listed in the service plan. So we're looking at anywhere from $22,500 to $24,150 plus taxes. So they've got an appendix here, key changes and developments. So there's new reporting requirements. Public sector 1201, financial statement presentation. The big one that was mentioned to council last year was PS 3280 asset retirement obligations. So that was originally to come into effect for the December 31st, 2022 year end. It's been moved ahead one more year. So, and that's because myself, as well as most of the other communities, were not prepared. Wasn't enough time to bring it in for this year. So that will be for December 2023 now. There's a new revenue section, revenue recognition, and recognition of financial statements. And then on page 8, there's all the new discussion for the CAS 315. If anyone is further interested in how they look at inherent risk and scalability and the audit risk and all of that good stuff. And then they end the service plan with their plan and their audit procedures. And if anybody wants to know more, has questions, they can feel free to come and see me. Thank you. And they will, once they present the financial statements upon completion, you're also welcome to talk to them as well.
They will come here.
They will come here, yes.
Okay, so rural economic diversification and infrastructure program. That's just on there for ongoing.
That was.
Yeah, I think,
Oh,
Councillor Frisbee had.
So just with a deadline of January 4th, is there anything planned, any projects planned for us to apply for that grant?
Yeah, well, I can speak to that. We did, well, earlier this year, make an application for upgrading the bridge, the Otaki Bridge. Think of that. What do you call it? We have a shelf-ready project. We did get support from First Nations when we first applied for that grant. And we're looking at about $1 million project. And I think that would be a grant, because of the fact that it's January 4th, and we don't have a lot of time, it would make sense for us to retry through this process, to make an application for that. And that's up to you.
So just so we're not doing a knee-jerk grant application, this is a short timeline. There will be another uptake in this grant opportunity in the very early new year to re-implement that if we want to look at whether that project is a priority in our strategic plan or something else that might be applicable. So we don't have to jump into the January 4th deadline. There will be another uptake of this. We will promise that in a virtual meeting. So just a heads up that we don't throw the first shovel ready one that we think we have. There may be other opportunities within Fleck or Lakeview or other options that we're looking at collaboratively with our local First Nation, for instance. But if this is the project that we think would incorporate some economic development, that would be something we would focus. Just to let you know that there will be another uptake in that in the early year.
I do think the footbridge or trestle bridge is a priority, you know, it's not in very good shape. Something to think about. And I know there's lots to do around town, but I've had a person complained about it the other day. And I said, well, we're working on it. So I do think it is one of our priorities. People use that back and forth to go from that side of town to come to the mail.
And if I may, that was a project we broached with Church Path. They've got bridges that they could bring in places there. It's going to go. I think the code we got from them was.
What year was that?
Oh,
And it might, yeah, you're right, it might have gone up.
you mean they take that bridge right out, put a new one in?
Put a new
Okay,
one,
not
right.
just repairs.
Not,
Oh, okay.
and we would add to it, we were looking at lighting.
Yes.
and
Lighting's important.
Lights, and I approached the subject with the superintendent. And I'm not sure what he was, but it's something that, you know, you have to want to. But I think the mayor's right, let's not rush into it.
But if you feel it's appropriate, then go for the January 4th one. If you feel
But
you've got
I
the
think
shovel
the only
ready,
thing is, that
you get one
we-
chance.
yeah, one chance, we don't want to lose this chance. We might be able to get another grant out.
Could you go for this one and the next one?
Yes, for sure.
So, but we have to have a certain amount of our funds though.
This one was, if you put in $1 million, if you apply for $1 million, you have to put in 200. So I think that's
Yeah, but 10% could be in so.
Yeah. good enough.
Did you have a question? So what is the?
Oh, no, if you feel that this is appropriate, then an appropriate resolution to move that forward in the grant would be in order.
So this is for the duck one. I'm trying to.
Is there any other projects that we have in mind?
I don't know, but this is to deal with economic development, right? So this would be something that would,
Fall in that
you
category?
know, would fall under the category. I'm not sure, unless, we were looking, we did apply for another, we put on the expression of interest for the waterfront walkway, so you don't even want to like that in with the
No.
That was a different grant.
different grant.
Councillor Ross said, I agree, that is economic, people walk back and forth for that bridge.
And we
Sun
joined
best users access to come across.
into the First Nations too.
Yeah.
So I'll make the motion that we apply for that grant for the trestle, Ochaki, whatever you want to call it, trestle bridge. It was the old train trestle.
Seconded by Councillor Sandu, so call question.
Can I ask?
Oh, sure.
Just through the say, so we'd ask for a letter of support from our First Nations on this and tied into their project. I think I know that.
Can I ask another question, being that the removal of the bridge, what is this gonna open up with fisheries?
That would, those things will have to be addressed.
Would have to be addressed and all that.
But it'd probably be easier if you're just removing it rather than fixing it.
There would be stuff going down.
So I'll call the question then, all in favor of that application? Okay, unanimous.
What did you do? What happened?
I just listened, we're just waiting to see if we were unanimous, we were.
Unanimous. and move on.
So now, D, we're looking for a leave of absence for Councillor Frisbee for which dates?
December 15th to January 10th.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Call the question, should we let him go?
Maybe.
If we go.
He has to bring us a koala bear back or something.
Not a real one.
Koala bear.
Yes, okay.
I'm just gonna watch it.
And the next one, Councillor McGonigal, is new appointments. E.
Okay, I'd just like to appoint Scouts Lake Recreation Commission. Councillor Sandu be the representative to the Scouts Lake Recreation Commission. And the alternate be Councillor Frisbee. Their meeting is coming up in January, so it's appropriate that we do that now. For the APC, which runs out at the end of December, Councillor Austin will be the appointment, and the alternate will be myself. And for poverty reduction, I have Councillor Austin and Councillor Bomaka for that committee. And if we can just move those to the council meeting, then they can be appropriately endorsed. Thank you for your input, everyone, and stepping forward for those. I appreciate it.
So I'll go to the regular.
Yeah, but I just make it here and then we'll move it forward.
So we have. Oh. Sorry, you got a question? Okay, no, this is a motion. And this is for upcoming, right? Anything on that upcoming? Wait, I have nothing. All good? Okay, so we'll go into question period, maximum 3 minutes per speaker. Maximum, oh no, we don't have a question period. Yes, we do, time allotted, 15 minutes, it's a long day. Limited items on the agenda, yeah, you may phone in at 250-749-6681, extension 108. Or email the questions to general@lakecowichan.ca. Once again, any questions from the public can be phoned in at 250-749-6681, extension 108, or email to general@lakecowichan.ca, and we will take a 3-minute break.
And don't forget, we have someone here too that can organize. Yes, it's over there.
Oh. Are we live? So do we have any questions from the public?
Well, there is a question from Eileen Spencer, but dealing with Lakeview campsite, when it's gonna be open, so I don't think it's something like that. So,
Do you have an answer that? you-
yeah, it'll be April 1st, isn't it?
No, the long weekend in May.
The main,
What's
the
that?
long
It
weekend in
opens
May.
long weekend in May. I think what they want to know is when they can make reservations, and that probably will be March 1st.
March first.
March
Yeah.
1st for Lakeview campsite. And question from the public?
Not so much a question, but a couple of comments on a few points, if I may. First, on the management with Bear Smart and whatnot, you're talking about fine structure. And rather than set one fine and hit it multiple times, you might want to consider a stepped up program, i.e. the first fine, $100 with a stiff warning. Second fine, $500. Third fine, $1,000. And then, I don't know if there's any legal prosecution, you can go from there. I manage a strata, and I've included within our bylaws, $200 fine per occurrence. Because that's what I could get past to the membership. But we do have a problem as far as bears and garbage cans go up there. To that point, if you're going to be looking at a fine structure, you need to be able to identify the garbage cans involved to the household that they belong to. As I say, we have a cul-de-sac with 6 houses on it. All of the residents in those homes put the cans in one common area. And I couldn't tell you whose can is whose. That's why I have them nailed. We've got 2 cans, they're over a week. I'd like to find them, but I don't know who they are.
What number?
There's numbers on
There's
Yeah.
numbers.
I don't know who they are.
We know. who
I've
they are.
asked the town who they are, and they said they're not sure. If you have a list of numbers that apply to my area, I would love them. Because then I can identify them and I can. We have the numbers. Okay. As far as placing priorities on bridge improvements and whatnot. In my mind, the greater priority should be looked at the Greenbelt Expressway. Making sure that that's capable of taking light vehicles in the case of emergency. That is your second way across the river. Move those rocks out of the way and put some removable bollards in there. Someone in Public Works to have a key, and pull them out real quick. That's your second way across the river.
There was a fish and game club actually that floored that in, I don't know, that's when I wrecked my arm the first time. About 20 years ago, and it is wide enough for the ambulance or a fire truck to go across.
So
Yeah, make sure it's stable.
It's not checked out then.
So we won't debate it, it's just.
It's just information,
Yeah.
making sure that the decking is adequate
Yeah.
to support a vehicle, a light truck or something of that nature.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And we have no in camera, so I guess we're gonna call for agenda. Counselor Sandu. Counselor Frisbee, all in favor of adjourning? Thank you. Take 5 minutes and then we'll do what I thought we do.
Joe, can I ask a question? So is that bridge inspected? I don't know, like, the
One
Ridgedale
on
Bridge,
Greenbelt?
like,
Yeah.
is it structurally every year or every so often?
No, that was 10 years ago when Maggie here.
It's constantly-
Yeah, that was taking trains. Structurally sound.
They're all good. It just
This
is
one is-
rusty.
Yeah, no, that one.
Are we muted or what?
We're off.
Yeah, I was looking at me.
Oh, you're right.